So my modernist obsession with Mario Ciampi started really early. When I was a child, I would go down the peninsula with my father every week on 280, and I would always marvel at the kind of soaring, strong, and elegant overpasses that we'd see along Crystal Springs. And it wasn't until much later that I learned that those were done by Mario Ciampi. Um, One of the things that I have always marveled about Ciampi is that he was an unapologetic modernist in a city that took modernism to be, not quite a dirty word, but something that had to fit into its kind of Victorian heritage. And Ciampi started by building new fabric. And so, with these four projects that you can see here, he really started to establish a scale and a language on mission, from the Excelsior down through Daly City. Ciampi was this really unique character in that he had no formal architectural education. He took night classes at the San Francisco Architectural College and then was admitted as a special student to the GSD at Harvard in 1930 through 1932, 5 years prior to Gropius taking over the school. And when he started his firm in 1945, he started building these fantastic modern projects, including the Corpus Christi Church that you see here in the Excelsior, which had a facade based on Mondrian paintings, including stained glass windows in red, blue, and yellow, which are, alas, no longer there. But Ciampi really to make a name for himself doing schools, and he won a number of commissions in the kind of newly developed Dolger area of Daly City, doing schools for this new neighborhood. And in these schools, you can see this kind of muscular, elegant, practical, modern expression, oftentimes with some form of sculptural roofs. And so here at Westmore High, you see the kind of barrel vaults coming across these sculpted concrete beams. You see this threshold that's cut away to allow the sky at Westmore High School. And as Ciampi was doing these schools, he was really starting to think about how to make kind of contextually responsive modern architecture that wasn't submissive to the context. And so you look at something like Vista Mar School here, and it has a circular plan with this crenellated folded concrete roof and this interior courtyard that's protected from the fog and the environment. And this is one of the early collaborations that Ciampi did with Lawrence Halprin, a friendship and a collaborator that they'd worked with for decades. And for incredibly frugal amount of money, the Olympia School, which was his first project in Daly City, he built in 1955 for $12.75 a square foot, which equates now to roughly $129 a square foot. And Ciampi started to get recognition for his work. He won 2 national AIA awards for his schools, one in Daly City and one in Sonoma. And making this series of projects which would, heavily influence or shape the background of where generations of Daly City citizens would grow up. Unfortunately, in the mid-60s, Daly City decided that it wanted to save a few percentage points on the architectural fee, and Ciampi stepped aside and they let somebody else take over the schools, and they just started to make these kind of rubber stamped schools instead. But from there, Ciampi, continued his explorations. Here you can start to see the overpass at Westlake Park, and here you can see his award-winning project for the Fernando Rivera Elementary School, which has this crenellated folded roof. And again, this idea of its courtyard space in Daly City to protect these students from the wind. And Ciampi was not interested in style, although you can see stylistic kind of predilections in his work. And he kind of was quoted as saying, "I never really developed a style. I was kind of a middle of the roader, always looking for directions that would lead to successful solutions, not trying to put my own personal Frank Lloyd Wright stamp on it or Mies van der Rohe." Um, Now that may or may not be true, but I mean, we can certainly see his stamp on Oceana High School here in Pacifica with its gentle curve on the hillside and views towards the ocean and these V-shaped concrete columns. And here is the award-winning presentation for the overpasses on 280 that go from San Francisco down to San Jose. And they use the template for over 70 of these overpasses with ideas of integrated railing systems. You know, his work as he matured got more and more sculptural. This was St. Peter's Church in Pacifica with its concrete frame and folded roof. Unfortunately demolished in the 80s and always leaky and full of problems. It was an architectural wonder from the beginning. You know, later he did Newman Hall at Berkeley, which, you know, veers towards the brutalistic, although I would say it's still really in keeping with his concrete expressionism. And you know, maybe most famously led to his winning the competition for the UC Berkeley Art Museum in 1970 with these fanning, ascending galleries around a central atria space. You know, all the while unapologetically modern, you know, not succumbing to ideas of the second or third Bay tradition, but just trying to express architecture at a scale that's appropriate for the city. And this culminated in his work with Halprin on the Ferry Building Plaza and Market Street, and which you can see in Justin Herman Plaza and also at Plaza, where he's trying to create new outdoor spaces that work with the changing context of the city. And you know, that is my love and appreciation for Mario Ciampi, all too fast.